Japan, a land steeped in rich tradition and folklore, holds within its shadows some of the most captivating and eeriest ghost stories, known as kaiden. Surprisingly, lots of these stories are about women, which makes them even more interesting. So, grab a cozy blanket as we delve into the chilling narratives whispered through generations by these enigmatic spirits and journey into the haunting beauty of Japan's supernatural realm. Knock knock, Socy Dark Talks is back. The Yamamba may seem like harmless elderly women, but they're actually scary mountain spirits that eat human flesh. One of their oldest stories comes from the Konjaku Monogatari. Once there was a Buddhist monk caught in a storm. Luckily, he found a lonely hut and was welcomed by a kind old woman who offered him food and warmth. Despite her kindness, she warned him not to peek into the back room. Driven by curiosity, the monk ignored her warning and peeked inside when she went out for firewood. He was horrified to see the room full of half-eaten bodies. Realizing the old woman was a Yamamba who tricked travelers to feast on them, he ran away as fast as he could and never looked back. The Joragamo is a scary creature that's part woman, part spider. It can change into a beautiful woman to trick men, then makes them becoming its prey. Once, a young samurai was approached by a stunningly pretty lady on the street. Even though she looked beautiful, the samurai knew she wasn't human, but some kind of monster. He drew his sword and attacked her, injuring her before she ran away. Following the trail of blood, he found an old, empty house. Inside, he discovered many bodies wrapped in spider webs, and a huge Joro spider, dead from his attack. Not every scary story from Japan is just made up. The tale of Oiwa is based on something that really happened in 17th century Edo. Oiwa was a very pretty young woman who was married to a samurai named Iemen. But Iemen only cared about her looks, not her as a person. And there was another woman, Ume, who was deeply in love with Iemen. Out of jealousy, she tricked Oiwa into using a cream that had poison in it. It made Oiwa's face look awful, with one eye drooping and her hair falling out. But she didn't even know it. When Iemen saw how Oiwa looked now, he immediately wanted to divorce her and marry Umi. He got his friend Takwetsu to do something really bad to Oiwa, so he'd have a reason to divorce her. But when Takwetsu saw Oiwa's face, he was so shocked that he couldn't go through with it. Instead, he told Oiwa what Iemen was planning and showed her how she looked in a mirror. When Oiwa saw herself like that, she was so horrified that she killed herself with Takwetsu's sword. Before she died, she cursed Iemen. On the night Iemen was going to marry Ume, the ghost of Oiwa showed up. Iemen was terrified and felt really guilty. He ran away from Oiwa, but no matter where he went, he couldn't get away from her ghost. After that night, whenever Iemen looked around, even in the lanterns lighting his way, he saw Oiwa's face staring back at him. The Yuki-onna is a snow spirit creature. She often takes the lives of people who get lost in snowy places, and sometimes she even falls in love. A young man was traveling through the snowy mountains, hoping to find his fortune. Suddenly, a snowstorm hit, and he got lost. Almost freezing to death, he was about to give up when a strange woman appeared before him. She was covered in frost and had a face as white as snow. She was a Yuki-onna. Feeling sorry for him because he was still young, she led him to a warm cabin in the woods, saving his life. But she made him promise never to tell anyone about their meeting. Years later, the young man married a lovely girl named Yuki, and they were happy together for a long time. One day, he broke his promise and told his wife about the Yuki-onna who had saved him. As he spoke, his wife's face turned pale, and frost covered her body. She was the Yuki-onna. Since he broke his promise, she disappeared into the winter night. 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐝's tale will make sure you can't sleep, and if it doesn't, her ghost will. Once there was a girl named 𝐒𝐤𝐤 who worked as a servant for the samurai Aoyama in Himeji Castle. One of 𝐒𝐤𝐤's jobs was to take care of her master's 10 valuable plates. But one day, while washing the plates, she noticed that one was missing. No matter how many times she counted, she always ended up one short. Her master was so angry that he threw her into a well. 𝐒𝐤𝐤 was murdered so brutally that her soul couldn't find peace. Every night, her ghost would climb out of the well and count her master's plates. She would count to 9, then, realizing the 10th plate was still missing, she would let out a terrifying scream. 𝐒𝐤𝐤's screams kept everyone in the castle awake for weeks until a Buddhist priest finally calmed her spirit. This ancient legend, dating back 1,000 years, is one of the earliest scary stories from Japan. A long time ago, there was a poor samurai living in Kyoto with his wife. One day, a rich lord from another place asked the samurai to work for him. It was a big honor, so the samurai had to say yes, leaving his wife behind in poverty until he came back. Many years later, after serving his lord faithfully, the samurai returned to Kyoto. Even though their house was falling apart, his wife was still there, happy to see him again. They spent the whole night talking and laughing before falling asleep together. But when the samurai woke up, he found that the warmth of his wife's body was gone. Instead, he saw that he was holding onto a cold skeleton covered in long black hair. Then he found out that his wife had died from sadness the summer before. But her skeleton had stayed in the house, waiting for him to come back. Besides Oiwa and 𝐒𝐤𝐤, Otsuyu is one of the 3 main female ghosts in Japan's famous ghost stories. One night, a samurai named Ogiwara saw a graceful lady holding a lantern made of peonies wandering the streets of Edo. Ogiwara instantly fell in love with her. He invited her, Otsuyu, to his home, where they talked, laughed, and enjoyed each other's company. Later that night, Ogiwara's neighbor heard strange laughter from Ogiwara's garden and looked over the wall. He saw Ogiwara holding not a woman, but a laughing skeleton. The next day, Ogiwara's neighbor told him what he saw. Horrified, Ogiwara sought advice from a nearby temple's priest. To his surprise, Ogiwara found Otsuyu's grave at the temple. He realized that the woman he had fallen in love with had died long before they met. Once Ogiwara knew the truth, Otsuyu's ghost stopped appearing to him. Despite knowing the truth, Ogiwara deeply missed Otsuyu. Eventually, unable to bear his sorrow, he returned to the temple where Otsuyu was buried. At the temple gates, Otsuyu appeared again. She reached out her hand, asking Ogiwara to go home with her. Without hesitation, Ogiwara took her hand and walked into the darkness with her. After his last visit to the temple, Ogiwara disappeared. Worried, the priest opened Otsuyu's grave. Inside the coffin were 2 bodies, Ogiwara and Otsuyu, forever together. Which of these tales scared you the most? Share your thoughts and let us know which story haunts your dreams in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe our channel so you won't miss out any creepy tales and scary adventures in the upcoming videos. This is Socy Dark Talks. Stay curious and embrace the darkness.